Welcome back to Now. I'm so glad to have with me former Green Beret Derek Anderson. Derek, thank you so much for coming on and thank you for your service.
Thank you, Stacy, as always.
I'm glad you're here. We had a recent attack on our troops in Jordan, and we lost three service members. It's a dereliction of duty on the part of President Biden and the leadership from the Pentagon all the way down to the troops and their immediate commanders that that drone was allowed to get through. They thought it was one of our own drones. Like I'm wondering, is there no code? You remember on Star Wars where they had an old code, but they transmitted it, and the guy inside of the Death Star was like, it's an old code, but it still works. So they were able to get in. It made me think of that, which is obviously fiction, but we don't know which drones belong to America. That was a unbelievable mishap there.
Yeah, absolutely, Stacy. First and foremost, I know that there's going to be a dignified transfer of remains today of those service members, from what I understand. And my hearts and prayers go out to those families. I've been in Afghanistan and Iraq, and I've lost service members, and I know how hard it is for those family members. But you're absolutely right, Stacy. This has been a complete abysmal response by the Biden administration. If we kind of go back in history and see over the last several months how things have kind of progressed, since October 17th through the end of November, we've had roughly over 150 attacks on our service members and installations in the Middle East region. We're now seeing, I said it personally back in November of last year. I said, hey, I don't wish for this on anyone. I don't want to see any of our service members get injured, harmed, killed, or anything. But based on the responses by the Biden administration, the blood will be on his hands when it does happen because of the lackluster response. And that's been one of the biggest criticisms I had of him for not only the last several months, but even the last few days. This attack happened on Sunday, and we've still seen no legitimate response to these Iranian-backed terrorist organizations in the region. So they're going to continue to fire at us until we actually do something about it. And I can tell you, Stacey, I have a few Green Berets that I worked with and I served with that are currently over there right now. And they are personally communicating with me, telling me that they're getting hit 20 plus times in the last 2 months. That the drones are hitting them within 50 meters of where they're physically on the ground, not in a building. This is like literally in bunkers in the open terrain. These drones are hitting nearby, and they're getting TBI, PTSD. Right now, I think that they've told me that they've got over a dozen Purple Hearts that are currently pending based on the injuries that they've received. So you're absolutely right, Stacey. It is a dereliction of duty, and the Biden administration needs to start get something right, or else we're going to continue to see these things happen.
I'm listening to you talk about the number of times they've been hit. I was serving in the military during a
Mhm.
time where if you killed an American troop, you could expect special forces on the ground. 82nd Airborne would be parachuting in. You would experience major loss and damage within days of any attack where a service member was killed. And that was just you knew that going in. If you decided to hit us, you'd better hit us as hard as you could because after that, your little terror cell would be gone and we would destroy you and then go in and destroy the infrastructure that was supporting you. And so obviously these are all proxies for the nation state of Iran. But when you're talking about the PTSD that the soldiers are experiencing, that's
Mhm.
unnecessary because we don't have to allow them to come under attack.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you, elaborating a little bit more on what I was just discussing on my fellow Green Berets that are over there right now. And again, not to disclose any locations where they may or may not be, but what I can tell you is that they have tried to retaliate. They've tried to act in self-defense when these drone attacks have come in because they know the point of origin. We've seen the White House and the DoD talk about this in some of their discussions and some of their press releases or press briefings that they know where the point of origin is, or they're pretty sure. Well, the guys on the ground, they have the equipment to find out where the point of origin is, and they're being told that they can't do anything about it. I mean, literally, my Green Beret friend that messaged me recently said that we are sitting ducks. That's the term he used. We are sitting ducks because we are not allowed or given the authority to be able to respond with any sort of appropriate action to defend themselves. Which, as you know, Stacy, just someone who served as well, that just doesn't cut it. Our
Mhm.
service members absolutely always have the right and ability to defend themselves when they are attacked upon. And I think it's pretty ridiculous that that's the stance of the Biden administration. That's the policy that they're pushing down to our lowest military members and our special operators on the ground.
When you're talking about this, it sounds so familiar. During the Obama years, he would sit in the Situation Room, and then when he couldn't be in there, their hands were tied. They would literally be doing bombing runs. You have F-16s hot in the air, ready to drop their load and go back and accomplish their mission. And they would be told to scrub it and head back to base because President Obama wasn't in the Situation Room to give them the okay. That kind of micromanaging by people who don't even have military experience is just an insult to our service members. But worse than that, they're prepared. They're ready to actually hit back. So I saw yesterday, President Biden made an announcement about a retaliatory strike by the United States. So now all of the terrorists they're basically moving their base so that they can get away from the incoming attack. 24 hours or more notice that we're going to strike at you is not the normal way of doing military business. Like, this is not the way we normally operate in any of our interactions with terrorists or anybody that we're against. Um, Talk to me about what you're expecting, because we have an election year. President Biden doesn't really like hitting terrorists the way Trump did. Trump destroyed terrorists. Even Obama killed,
Mhm.
I mean, he went in with the drones. He was the drone king. As much as I didn't like his leadership, he did at least eradicate some terrorists. What are you expecting as this year goes on with the Houthi rebels, the Yemenis? It's a very volatile situation.
Yeah, Stacey, one of the things we have to take in consideration is like if we look at how these terrorist organizations, these Iranian-backed terrorist organizations are operating, not only are they hitting us and we're not giving an appropriate response, but from a funding perspective, they're really draining our resources. I think Congressman Mike Waltz was on a few days ago, and he was talking about how these drones that they're able to procure, these terrorist organizations, depending on what kind they're getting, some of which are being bought off of the Chinese version of Amazon, are they're roughly $40,000 or less after they equip them and what have you. The munitions or the rockets that we're using to take the drones out are in the millions. So every drone that they're pushing into our, going against and sending against our military installations and our personnel on the ground, every attack or counterattack that we're putting in the air, we're losing hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxpayer dollars. So this is not just a game of attrition of, okay, well, they're going to continue to harm and go after our service members, but this is a thing. This is another way that they can continue to try to deplete our resources in the area, which, as we all know, we have 3,000 service members right now in Jordan. I will be curious to see what the Biden administration does to counteract that if he plans to put more troops on the ground or what have you. So it's going to be a very
Yeah.
interesting, volatile situation.
Yeah, I love the detail there. We'll have to have you back to talk about this more. We really appreciate your time tonight. Thank you for your service. Green Beret, Derek Anderson. Good to have you here. We have more Stacey Washington now coming up. Stay right there.